Okay, so we're going to do a little training in class here. We're going to open up Microsoft Word and we're going to take a look at heading styles and how the heading styles integrate into a table of contents. You're going to want a table of contents in your manuals, and then we'll take a look at some of the questions that popped up concerning headers and footers, and I will then tackle any other questions that anybody has considering any of the features in the development of your training manuals. So to go through the examples, I've placed a sample file. It's not a huge file, but you'll get the idea. If you log into our Blackboard shell, and if you take a look at the left navigational panel, you'll see the link, Course Materials. If you click on the Course Materials link and scroll down just a little bit, you will see a file under the heading Word Using Styles to Create a Table of Content. And there's a sample Word document in that item called Pack 13. So you can click on that and open it up with Microsoft Word. I'm going to hit my escape key to get out of my reading mode. And I might go, if you take a look, you should be at the top of the Word document. Now this is just me. I always, when I open up a file, I like to kind of be familiar with what's going on. The hide show, most of you should know about that. You took advanced business apps. I like to keep that visible so I can see, I can see hard returns. I can see special section breaks, hard page breaks, things like that. And so when I'm in the development mode, I like that show because I like to see those non-printing characters. Okay, the first thing that I want to demonstrate here is inserting a table of contents. So keep this in mind while you're developing your training manuals. The first page is a blank page, and you can see that there is a section, next page, section break. So anything below the section break is going to appear on the next page of the manual. We left this blank document because we're going to leave it as it's basically a placeholder for where we want the table of contents to go. Typically, that's the last thing you're going to do once you're finished with developing your training manual. You go in and you insert your table of contents. So we'll do that later, but that's what that placeholder is for. Now, if you could scroll down to the top of page 1. This is a document. It's not a training manual, but you'll still get the same idea. If you would click anywhere on the title, on the top of that second page, customer information, when you click on this, now you all know this from advanced software apps. If you look at the style gallery in your style group, clearly you can see a heading 1 title has been applied to that text. Now, again, a really nice, easy way to select a line is to go into the left margin area, also known as the selection area. Click, but you can see clearly if you look up at that, that's already been applied a heading 1 style. So in other words, the author of this document applied a heading 1 style. Notice the formatting attributes, but that's going to be kind of a primary item in the table of contents. I want to show you another example. If you click anywhere in the second line, beginning worldwide sporting goods, you'll see that that is a normal style. It's just normal. Now, normals are not added to a table of content. Normal is just the default fonts, and so that's good. Anything that you don't want in the table of contents, you wouldn't format with a style. Now, if you take a look at this third line, I'm going to again select it using the selection area. If you look at the style gallery, and again, this is right in front, right on the home ribbon, right in front of us, you'll see that the author here applied a heading 2 style. So guys, in the table of contents, the heading 2 style, anything with a heading 2 style will appear in a table of contents, but it'll be secondary. It'll be not the emphasis of a heading 1, but it'll be a secondary emphasis, but because it's a style, it's going to be included in the table of contents. I'm going to show you one more example, and then we're going to apply our own examples here. So if you go down to, you see the text sporting equipment, I'm going to select that. And you can take a look once again at the style gallery, and you're going to see that that was formatted with a heading 3 style. Now the question was posed by a student in this classroom that can I apply a heading 3 style, but maybe in my manual I want to change the color, I might want to apply an underline or something. You can do that and Word will still look at that as a heading 3 style. So it allows you consistent formatting, but yet say this is a style I want included in my table of contents. Okay, so we've got an example of a heading 1, heading 2, and a heading 3. Now by default, when you use a table of contents, by default, it'll only pull heading 1s, 2s, and 3s. So if you format anything with a heading 4 style or a heading 5 style or any other style, by default, it won't pull that into the table of contents. So kind of keep in mind, you could just have all heading 1s in there, that's fine. But you could have heading 1s, 2s, or 3s by default. There is a way to add other styles, but it's a lot of additional programming within Word to make that happen. If you want to just keep it simple, stick with the heading 1s, 2s, or 3s. Okay, so again, this is a little bit of review from advanced software apps or business apps. But if you take a look at clothing, you can see clothing, and it's kind of the heading of another paragraph. When you click on clothing, or I'm going to select clothing, okay, you can see that's a normal style. So right now, that particular heading or that particular word will not be included in the table of contents. So I want to include it in the table of contents, but I kind of want it like third tier down. I don't want it a main title or a secondary heading. But if you go up, and again, this is a review for you guys, or it should be, in the Styles Gallery, if you click on heading 3, now that you made that a heading 3 style, that is also telling Word, when you think about it in a table of contents, that's going to be pulled into the table of contents. Okay, let's do the other ones here. So there's 2 other. You see supplies? Let's go ahead and select that. We want to add that into our table of contents at the level 3 level. So we'll click on heading 3 and then memorabilia as heading 3. Now there's going to be more we're going to add in just a second. Okay, but the beautiful thing about doing it this way is your table of contents is set up automatically and it automatically updates as you make changes and add items to it. So let's say we've got this much done, and this could be true going back to your training manual. You get this much done, but then we proof it and we give you other ideas. Now you add additional content. It's like, oh, okay, now how do I add that additional content after the fact to the table of contents I already created? So that's why we're going to just stop right here. Now you're going to see how amazingly easy, and this is why I teach it this way. There's other ways to create table of contents, but not this simple. So we can hit Control Home to go up to the top of our document, or you can simply scroll to get to the top of your document. And you want to place your cursor on the page where you want to insert that table of contents. We want it inserted right at the top line. Now the table of contents is found in, and it's a ribbon you don't use very often or you haven't been exposed to very often in this program, references. And in references ribbon, look at the very first icon you see in the table of contents group right there. So if you click on table of contents, it pulls down a gallery of some predefined formats that you might want to use. You know, there's a table 1 and it kind of gives you an example where you see how it's going to format and place. Notice the leader dots, you know, the leaders going to the page numbers. The heading 2 you can see in that first one will be italicized, but you see how it looks at those. Now, for the purposes of your training manual, it would make sense not to use the chapter title, you know, I mean, the way I demonstrated, you could either use this or this, but you can also customize any of the attributes in there. Now, the easiest way, everybody, I'd probably pick the first one, click, check that out. So if you take a look, the heading 1, customer information, is bolded, and that's what it looks like. And it, again, you see the leader tabs going to a right aligned page number. And you can see, most of these, there's a couple other things in here, the index and stuff that we didn't do that was predefined. But you see how it automatically knows the page number and it places that in there. That's all there is to it. Now let's say we want to change something. We're going to change some pages around. So you're going to see how you automatically can update a table of contents. This is so much easier, guys, than manually typing a table of contents in there. And this is kind of why I suggest that you keep a placeholder for it in your manual and do this at the end. So notice we've got the things we've added. The sporting equipment, the clothing, the supplies, the memorabilia. Remember, we formatted that in a heading style 3. There it is. Okay, let's say we want to add a little bit more. You want to see, by the way, it says contents here. You could actually, when you're all finished, you could, edit that to say table of contents, or, you can make that your own. Okay, let's scroll back down now. We're done with page 3. Or 2, or 1, or whatever it is. And let's go, notice this one would be this is page 3. The top of page 3 is benefits of worldwide sporting goods. So we're going to select that right now. If you go back to your home ribbon, everybody, it's considered to be normal. Normal isn't brought into a table of contents. So you have to decide at what level you want to bring it in. What level should we bring it in, guys, to our table of contents? What would make sense for this? Probably a 2, that's what I was thinking. So we're going to choose heading 2. Once again, heading 2 is italicized like this. You can still change the color and it'll still look at it as a heading 2. Product features, let's say we want to add that into our table of contents as a heading 3. We'll make that heading 3. Service features, let's say we want that as a heading 3. And let's go down to advertising agreement, which is on page 4. So you see how we've added more content? Let's say we want advertising agreement as a heading 1. Okay. And let's say, terms and conditions of the sales. If you take a look at page 5, you see, that's why it was in our table of contents, because it was already formatted as a heading 2. If you take a look at delivery, that's normal. Let's say that we want that. Okay, let's say we want that as a heading 3. Let's go to payment. We want a heading 3. Minimum order, we want a heading 3. Returns, we want a heading 3. Prices, I'm selecting, we want a heading 3. And then breakage and loss, a heading 3. Finally, cancellations, a heading 3. So in your manuals, you may only use heading 1s, and that's okay, but you have like up to 3 different levels. Now let's, the index right here too, if you click on that, you see that was a heading 2. Let's say we wanted a heading 1. I'm just showing an example of changing all that. Okay, now let's hit Control Home to go back up to the top of our document. And you see, as you make those changes, your table of contents is not automatically updated. Now, there's a couple ways to do that. You can use the Smart Tag that appears in the top, and you can click on this. Or I'm a right clicker. I just right click anywhere on that, and I just choose Update Field. Okay, either way should work. Update field. Actually, this is the, okay, either way. So I'm going to update the field, and it's asking me if I want to just update the numbers only because maybe the numbers change. Generally speaking, I say update everything because I've added additional items. I choose okay. Take a look at how cool that is. You see, and it knows the page numbers, and you see the page numbers there. Now let's do one more thing, okay? Because when you're developing your manuals, you may end up inserting additional material in your training manuals, and it may force some of these things to be on different pages. So what we're going to do, you just make a mental note here, customer information. You see in all those on page 1 and then page 2. we're going to insert a new page before that. So before customer information, we can click right before the C in customer information and go to your keyboard and hit Control Enter to insert a hard page break. So in essence, you're forcing all the data down into a new page break or a new page. Now if I go back up to my table of contents again, it doesn't automatically do that for you. So once again, you can click on it, update the table. And again, even when I do something like that, update the field, I always like to say the entire table. It's up to you. Otherwise, it'll just update the page numbers. Okay? And take a look at how it automatically updates the page numbers for you. Now, I've taught this in previous years, and I've had students still not get it and manually have to update their table of contents, and it's been a disaster for them. A lot more work than what it needs to be. And also, hopefully here, you can connect and you can see why I feel like you should leave a placeholder for it, like a page. And I think it's something that you should insert when you're finished formatting the styles and the pages you want with the heading 1, 2, or 3 style. I am going to just show you one last little tip on the table of contents. Let's say that I want to change the look or the style of my table of contents, okay? So, or I want to remove it and I want to start all over again. Once again, references is the key. It's the reference ribbon, and in the table of contents group, you see that there? Let's go to table of contents. Again, that pulls down a menu. And I know all of our hard work here, everybody. Let's go down to the bottom and let's just remove it. It's easy enough to remove. Now let's say that I want to make my own style. Now most of you will probably take one of the built-in templates, and those are totally acceptable for your training guides. But if you go to table of contents and you go down to, I want a custom table of contents. I mean, I want a little bit more control over how it appears. Now personally, myself, when I've used table of contents, I customize it because there's usually some things like I like to see different. So customize the table of contents. You see, it's still going to be looking at heading 1, 2s, or 3s. I suggest right here that you always show the page numbers. Sometimes there are a table of contents where you don't have page numbers, but that kind of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish with this training manual. The page numbers are right aligned at your right margin. That's always a good thing. But if, for example, you don't like the leader tabs, the dots, you can choose the drop-down arrow and you can say, I'd rather have dashes or lines. Maybe I want lines. If I choose lines, look at how it changes. You can see the preview right here. Okay. Now the formatting, if you take a look at the first one, we used the template that we saw in that initial gallery. But here's where you can pick different. So you could say, I'd rather on the bottom have a simple one. You see, it kind of does that. I don't really care for that. But again, you can see live preview in here. So you could say, no, I'd rather have a classic looking one. You see, there's no leader dashes or anything like that. I'd rather have a distinctive one. So you see, you can kind of change and you can make it your own that way if you want to. Otherwise, you can just pick one of the templates off the menu. Now, as I mentioned to you earlier, and really in your training guides, they're small enough. I personally don't think you're going to need more than 3 heading styles. Like I said, some of you may only use 1. Some of you may use 1 or 2. But this is where you could say, I want to see 4 levels or 5 levels, and that's where you would add those additional heading styles. As I started this training, the default is 3. And if actually you're going to be publishing this to an internet, by default, the table of contents will be formatted as a hyperlink. So in other words, the user clicks on a hyperlink and it would take them to that specific section in that specific page. These are not going to be published on the internet, so it's totally up to you whether you want to use hyperlinks or not. Use hyperlinks instead of page numbers. We'll click on that in web preview and then OK. There's your table of contents. So that's how you can modify it if you so choose. Now notice this does not have a heading here, table of contents. So probably what I'd want to do is enter that down one and then manually type my table of contents or something like that. So that wraps up the training for the table of contents. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, give me a call. I'd be happy to help out.